In this lesson, we'll use spline wrap and some polygonal modeling techniques to create a modern chair. So I want to create kind of a curvy type recliner chair, and one of the ways we can do that is using splines to define that basic shape and then go from there. So let's go into the right view, and I want to drop in the spline to begin with that I want to help to define the chair. So I'm going to go ahead and go under splines, and I want to just draw out a freehand spline. And so let's just draw that out. So something like that. Yours doesn't have to look exactly like this, but something similar. And I want to change the type from Bezier to cubic. And now I want to go in and manipulate some of these points. So I'm just going to kind of clean this up and get really exactly the curve that I want. So I'll just kind of define this a little bit more. If I need to go in here and add a point, I can add one in there. Kind of move that back a little bit. Okay, so when you're happy with the curve that you've got, we now need to actually create some geometry to flow along this curve. Let's start with a simple cube. And now to get the cube to follow this path of this spline, I'm going to go into the MoGraph menu and choose Spline Wrap. Let's drop the Spline Wrap deformer underneath the cube. Still nothing has happened because we haven't defined the spline that we want to use. So you can see as I have this deformer selected, there's an area for spline down here in the Attributes Manager. And so what I want to do is drag the spline that we created right into that field there. And you can see now the cube is really trying to follow along with that spline, although it's not doing a very good job because it doesn't have enough resolution. So if we go in now and select the cube and start to dial up some segments, you can see how that it is in fact following along with that cube. So let's go ahead and give it a reasonable amount of segments to be able to get a nice smooth shape. Let's also start to tweak some of the size settings to get the chair looking the way that we want. That's kind of one of the nice things about using a primitive like this, is that you can go in and modify this very quickly. So we can make this a bit thinner. So on the other two axes, besides the one that we use to kind of bring this along the spline, we can change those values. Okay. If you want to, you can kind of bring in some segments in that way, but I'm going to actually do that later. Same thing here. You can bring in some extra segments if you wanted to do that, but again, go ahead and for simplicity's sake, because we're going to be doing some modeling, I'll go ahead and leave that as is. So once we have this, we'd really like to be able to take this a little bit further and start doing some modeling to this. Okay, so I can go ahead and if I take this cube, and if I say make editable, you can see that it doesn't really take into account the deformer that we've got. Okay, so what I want to do is right click on it, and instead of make editable, I'll go to current state to object, and let's go ahead and turn off these other things. And then we've got our cube object there that is following along with the spline. Let's go to an edge selection, use our edge tool, and I want to go to the loop selection, and I want to select the loops on the side. So I've just basically got this rim around the sides there. And with these selected, I'm going to go to bevel. And what I want to do now is just drag out kind of a strip of polygons where that edge used to be that we can use to define our seam. I'll now go to a polygon selection and again go to the loop selection, and I'll select those new loops that we just created. Alright, now to create that seam, I'm going to use extrude, and let's get up here so we can kind of see this. And I want to extrude out a very small amount first, and then repeat that one more time and pull that out a little bit more. And I actually want to undo that. I want to make sure that preserve groups is on when I do that, or they'll all be separated. So make sure you have that turned on. Now to preview what that's going to look like, we can go ahead and drop in a hyperNURBS, drop our cube into the hyperNURBS, and you can see we have this kind of little seam there. So the next thing we want to do is create our cushions. So I'll go ahead and turn the effect of the hyperNURBS off, go to a polygon selection, and now I'm going to define maybe these polygons as being this sort of lower cushion, one solid piece, and then maybe these guys up here. And let's maybe go down all the way down there. So with those selected, let's go ahead and go to extrude. Let's kind of pull those up, and I'm going to pull them up maybe 25 in the offset, and we'll remember that number. So what this will do is give us these sort of cushions coming off the top. So now we need to create these kind of segmented cushions down here. And so for that, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to go to the right view, and because this is going to be pulled off here at an angle, I'm going to go ahead and go back to the rectangle selection. And I want to make sure I turn off only selected visible elements. And I'll just kind of move that out of the way. Now back to polygon tool and live selection. I'll select all these guys in the middle. And so then what we want to do is, instead of extruding, let's bevel those. Okay, so I'll go ahead and pull those up. For this bevel, if this preserve groups is on, you want to just make sure to turn it off. Okay, and then for the extrusion, we can take this up to 25. Okay, the same amount as the other one. And then for the inner offset, you can see this will allow us to kind of separate things a little bit. And so what I want to do is just pull it in so it's just right next to each other. Just something like that. Now if we turn back on our hyperNURBs, we get something that looks like that. Now you can see the edges of these are really soft, so what this needs is an edge loop or two going along the side. So if we take a look at this, sort of in this view, we need some edge loops along the side to define that. So we'll go ahead and in our polygon mode, let's go to knife and let's choose for the mode plane. Okay, so you can see our plane isn't quite right, so we need to go ahead and check that. And so let's try the YZ. And so this is the plane that we want, and I'll just cut that along that plane, but we want to have actually 2 cuts. So we'll change the number of cuts to 2. Okay, and so you can see how these are really close together. So I'm going to drag the left one to the point where I want to place it. Okay, and then hit Shift to kind of drop that in temporarily. This will give me the opportunity to take my mouse over here and change the spacing. So I'll take that spacing until that other one is about the same distance away. Go ahead and click, and it adds that line onto our little chair here. So now you can kind of see where that line's been added. If we now turn back on our hyperNURBs and look at it, you can see how we've now got those cushions a little bit more clearly defined. Now if we want to kind of smooth this out a little bit, we can go into our side view, go to the points, and I want to actually grab the rectangle, draw across here, and let's just kind of pull those down a little bit to kind of smooth out the cushions there. And we'll do the same thing down here and just kind of smooth that out. All right. Another thing that we could do would be to go in and add a loop right along here to kind of add some detail. So we'll go back to knife. This time we'll use loop. And I want to select the cuts that we make. And so I want to make kind of one right in the middle. You go to an edge selection. We've got that selected. Let's go ahead and just kind of scale that out a bit. Maybe pull that out. Give it a little bit of shape there. So we got a little bit of a bulge on the side. So it's starting to get there. You can see how you can start to get a nice shape with that. If you want to continue to tweak this, you can go into use the point tool with the rectangle selection and make sure we've got our cube selected. We can kind of shape the top of this a little bit better. Maybe the bottom as well, kind of pull that out. All right, so now we might want to go in and create some kind of feet for this. So in this case, we could go to our top view, drop in maybe a cylinder, And let's actually undo that. Let's drop in a cone. Let's kind of put it into some sort of a position here. Okay, and now with this cone selected, we can start to change some of these values. So we'll change this value. We'll go ahead and pull that down. And so we'll make this kind of inverted cone. We can change the height. Okay, take our top radius down quite a bit. Take our bottom radius up a little. Okay, we can change the number of segments that we've got there because it's looking a little bit, it's a little bit too high. Until we get this kind of leg that we want. Let me go ahead and just pull this whole thing up a bit. And then we'll take this cone and maybe place it on that line. So we've got a simple leg going on there. I'll go ahead and take this cone, control click to duplicate it, and pull the copy up here, and maybe enlarge it, make it a little bit taller so that it kind of penetrates in there. If you want to take this and kind of rotate it a little bit, you can do that too if it's not really matching up with what you want. So we've got the two legs there now. So if we take both of these, okay, make those editable, and take both of them, and then let's go ahead and connect and delete. So that'll give us this one side. All right, let's go ahead and add some symmetry to this. So add a symmetry object, take the cone, drop it into symmetry, and there you've got legs kind of on both sides. All right, so using our spline mask, we were able to get this nice curved shape with some polygon geometry very, very quickly. And then we were able to go in, kind of bake that down, and then use our polygon modeling techniques to create the different parts, the cushions, the seams, and then add some legs as well. So it's kind of a quick and easy way to create a modern chair or any piece of furniture really using a spline wrap, as well as some polygon modeling techniques. So there you go. Feel free to apply that to your own interior furniture models.